Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today, we find ourselves as spy masters, and we're going to be recruiting agents from different branches of espionage. We're going to be trying to dominate those different branches so that we can complete valuable undercover missions. Today we're going to be taking a look at Spynet. This is a 2 to 4 player tactical card game designed by Richard Garfield and is produced by Zman Games. Now I'm going to be doing a rule school, so I'm going to teach you how to set up and play the game so that you don't have to read the rulebook yourself. I've also placed timestamps below me of different sections of the rules in case you want to jump to a specific section. Without further ado, let's get started. Spynet is a tactical card game for 2 to 4 players where you're going to be trying to dominate certain branches more than your opponents so you can secretly play down missions to earn you points at the end of the game. You'll be recruiting agents into your hand by secretly looking at piles and taking the pile you want, but the piles you looked at get more enticing to your opponents. Some agents act as wild and can be placed in any branch. Some funding cards can allow you to attach those to agents to give them more power. Other agents have special abilities that can do things like eliminate other players' agents. Some missions can be wild, but you're forced not to be dominating those at the end of the game to get the points. Some of them force you to be dominating, and others give you more flexibility as to which branches those can be played on. It can also be played as a 4-player team game where teammates sit across from each other and work together and can pass cards throughout the game to each other. And there's an advanced variant called Situations that allows you to change a game with a single different rule, like all green cards are wild. So let's see if you can strategically play cards, dominate branches, and secretly play missions to win the game. I'm going to show you how to set up and play the game first for 2 to 3 players. At the end of this video, I'm going to show you the differences if you're using 4 players. Now if you are playing with 4, you need to watch the whole video because most of the mechanisms I show you are going to be the same for the 4-player game. To set up, you'll first take all of these situation cards that have a back like this, and you will remove all of these from the game, put them back in the box. You won't need them for now. We'll use them in an advanced game that I'll show you at the end of this video. Next, you'll take all the other cards and shuffle them in one large deck, and then you'll take cards from here off the top and put one of them in each of these 3 slots to the left of this deck. You'll also leave a spot empty to the right, which will be used as a discard pile throughout the game. Next, each player is going to get a set of branch tokens. They look like this, and there's 4 colors: green, blue, red, and yellow. They also have symbols in case you're colorblind. Each player will get this set that looks just like this. If you're playing with less than 4 players, you can put the remaining ones back in the box that aren't being used. Next, each player will place those branch tokens in front of themselves, but also close to the cards in the middle of the table. Order is not important, but it's good to keep them consistent. For example, if you're playing a 2-player game, one player sets theirs up like this, and the player on the other side of the table matches the colors 1 for 1 so that they're all aligned. If you're playing with a 3rd player, set them up again off to the side where the 3rd player would sit, obviously keeping them in the same order if you can. Randomly determine the first player. Then, the player to the right of that, who will be last in turn order, because in this game things move clockwise, that last player will take an amount of cards off the top of the deck. Depending on the amount of players, it'll be 1 card for each player. So if there's 2 players, they'd take 2 cards. If there's 3 players, they'd take 3 cards. So let's say this player was the first player. This player took the 3 cards. They would secretly select 1 and pass 2 to the player to their right, counterclockwise. This player would look at them, secretly select 1, and the last card would go here. So everyone starts with 1 card, and then this player will be the first player to start the game. Keep in mind that if this is your first time playing, you can either wait to the end of this video where you understand all the rules and do it like this, or if you'd like, you could just deal it up randomly just to learn your first game. The object of the game is to have the most points at the end of the game, and you're going to score points by playing mission cards in certain branches. This would be worth 2 points. These will actually be secret throughout the game. Players won't know who has how many points, and you'll only be able to play these if you dominate a branch, meaning you have a higher total power than all other players in this branch. The game is played over a series of turns. Each turn, starting with the first player and going clockwise motion, they'll either be recruiting cards or deploying them out. This will continue until this entire draw deck is gone, which will start the end of the game process. On your turn, you can either recruit or deploy. If you recruit, you start with the pile that's furthest away from the draw deck, you pick up all of the cards in this pile, and you secretly look at them. You decide whether to keep them or to put them back. If you put them back, you go to the next pile that's closest to the draw deck. You do the same thing. You secretly look at them, you either keep them or put them back. Let's say they put them back, and you do the same for the third pile if you had not taken any cards. And let's say we put these back. If you go through all three piles and you still have not taken any of the cards in any of those piles, you would then take the top single card off the draw deck. Then for every pile that you looked at, you do what's called padding a pile. Padding a pile is adding one card to that pile. So since we looked at all three of them, we would pad these up. This gives the opponents more information and more things to choose from. So that would simply have been this first player's turn. Let's say it's the next player's turn and they also want to recruit. Let's say they look at these two cards secretly and they decide they want them. They keep them, and then they simply just pad the pile that they looked at. Let's say it's the next player's turn. They want to recruit. They look at this pile, they don't want it. They look at this pile, they keep it. So you would pad again the piles that they looked at. That's how you recruit. Now let's say it came back to this player's turn and they did not want to recruit. They want to deploy cards, so they would take the deploy action. In this case, you'd be taking cards from your hand and placing them down in front of you. Now when you deploy, you can do any of these that you like, and you can do them in any order. One thing you can do is you can play up to one agent in any branch. In this case, I just played this agent here in the blue branch. The number here shows me how much power I have in this branch. If I had more than one card, I would add up all of the numbers, and that's my total power in that branch. When playing that single card to any branch, you can add one or more funding cards. There are gray cards that say funding, and they essentially add to the power of that agent. In this case, we have 2 + 1, so this is a total of 5 right here, and these cards are attached to this specific agent. But let's say for this example, we just played that single agent card. You can also play a single mission card face down for every branch that you're currently dominating. We're going to talk about dominating in just a moment, but let's assume that we are dominating this branch. We could place a single card, a mission card. These are ones that have stars on them. You would place it face down at the bottom of that branch. Now, dominating a branch means you have more power than all other opponents in that branch. So in this case, we have a power of 2, they have a power of 1, and they have a power of none. Since we have more, we dominate, and that allows us to play one of those mission cards in that branch that we dominated. However, let's say this opponent also had 2. We are no longer dominating, so we could not play that mission down. Now let's say it looked like this. We're actually dominating 2 branches right now, so we could have played one mission card in each branch that you're dominating. So we could have played one in blue, and we could have played one face down in green because we're dominating that branch. So in summary, when deploying, you can place one single agent on any branch, you can play one mission card for each branch that you're dominating, and you can attach one or more funding cards to an agent if you place them down in a branch. As agents are added, keep everything visible. This agent was just added with funding attached to it, but make sure everyone can see how much power you have, and they can clearly see which agent is on the top, which is the last, most recent agent to have been played. Some agents have text on them, and these are known as special agents because they activate abilities as you deploy them. For example, you can play up to 2 extra agents this turn whose overall printed power is 5 or less. Printed power means the power on the cards themselves without taking in effect any possible funding that might get attached to them. This is a printed power of 5. This one says eliminate one agent whose total power is 3 or less. Total power is the power of an agent plus any funding possibly attached to it. So in this case, this is 3, total power 3 or less. When you play this, you could eliminate this agent from another player. Eliminate means you completely eliminate those cards from the game and put them back in the box. This one says to eliminate one player's topmost agent in any branch. And as mentioned previously, the top agent is the most recent one played on anyone's branch, and if it is eliminated, any attached funding would be eliminated also. This one says discard one or more funding cards to flip one opponent's agent whose total power is equal or less than the overall value of the funding card discarded. Well, what does that mean? So if we deployed this one here, we could activate this text and discarding one or more funding cards. When you discard, you always place it to the right of that pile there, and that just shows you that we've discarded this card. Now this value is 2, so we could flip any agent whose total power is 2 or less. Now over here we have this agent that's 2. This one also has a total power of 2 because we have 1 plus the funded. Even though it's not the most recent one, we can flip this, which means we take it and we place it right into our specific side. There's also mercenary agents which have a purple border. This shows it's a wild and that it can go to any branch. So when you place this agent down, or if you flip it to your side, you can place it in any branch. Now, there are some special missions as well. This is a normal one. Most of them will look like this. They'll have a certain amount of stars. And as showed previously, you'll be placing these face down during the deploy phase in different branches that you dominate. However, there are some special ones. Like this one says, this card is worth points only if you're dominating this branch. And this means at the end of the game, because all the scoring happens at the end of the game. So this would go face down like normal, assuming I'm dominating this branch, and assuming I haven't played a card in this branch as a mission yet this turn. And this card would give us points only at the end of the game if we're still dominating that branch. Some missions also belong to any branch, and similar to the Mercenary agents, this purple background and these icons show that it can be played in any branch, assuming that you're dominating at the time. But at the end of the game, this card's only worth points if you are not dominating this branch. So in order to get these points, you have to be leading a branch, place this card there face down, and then at the end of the game, be not dominating that branch. So turns continue clockwise, either recruiting or deploying as shown, until the last card of the draw deck has been removed. In that case, everyone, including the player that caused this to happen, will get one last turn, but you can only deploy in that last turn. You're not forced to deploy a card. You can pass in your last turn, but the only thing you can do is deploy or pass. Then each player will flip face up all of their mission cards that they deploy throughout the game. If they don't have any text, it's 1 point for each of the stars that's on there. If it does have text, you have to make sure that you are following and fulfilling the text there in order to gain those stars as points. And then whoever has the most stars or points wins. If it's a tie, whoever has the most funding cards, not the values, but the number of cards. If it's still tied, you share the victory. If you're playing a 4-player game, it becomes a team game. And as shown in this graphic, you'll have 2 players that will be Team A and 2 players that will be Team B. You will sit across from your teammate so that the turn order will alternate between teams. So in setup, it might look something like this, where these 2 players are one team and these 2 players are one team. And when playing with 4 players, to see if you're dominating a branch, you must dominate more than both of your other opponents. So in this case, this is us, this is our teammate. This player has 2 for the green. This opponent has 1, this opponent has none. You look at each of your opponents. I'm dominating more than this one, and I'm dominating more than this one. So in this case, I am dominating and could play a mission card face down for this specific branch because I am dominating. And even if my partner is actually dominating the branch, it's okay because it's my partner. As long as I'm dominating both of the other opponents, I dominate that branch. But in this case, I'm no longer dominating this branch. Now I do have more than this opponent, but I do not have more than this opponent. And even though my partner dominates this branch, I am not considered as dominating that branch because I have at least one opponent that I am not dominating because I don't have more than them. There's also one more change to the deploy turn. If you decide to deploy, you have one more option, which is you can pass up to 1 card face down to your teammate. You can also play with an advanced variant called Situations. In the normal setup, we had you remove these cards. You can either shuffle these and use 1 for the entire game for everybody, or you could manually pick one that you'd like to use. Let's show you what some of these do. You would simply follow the text on the cards. For example, if you used Arms Race, you cannot play an agent in a branch that you are dominating. And if you're using this intel, Infiltration, which is a green branch, belongs to all 4 branches, so essentially greens or wild. So you would just, again, either shuffle and deal 1 randomly, or you would select 1, and that just changes a single rule for the game. Well, I hope this helped you dive right into Spynet and get to the fun quicker than you normally would if you had to read the rulebook yourself. Now, I've placed a link below me in the description of this video, and that's the best place to ask any additional questions you may have about the rules, because not only will I be notified, but so will Zman Games.